Joining me now from just outside the nation's capital is Sourabh Gupta. He's a senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-American Studies. So, Sourabh, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from this first stop in Saudi Arabia?
I think the biggest takeaway, frankly, is the pivot away from the old relationship between China and Saudi Arabia based on natural resources and oil to a new relationship which is actually built on entrepreneurialism, dynamism, and technology development. The Saudis are making ambitious moves in this direction, and they're seeing a very ripe and fruitful partner in China, frankly.
Taking a look at some of the other upcoming stops on this tour, Turkey, Iran, the UAE, and Oman. How does China view this region of countries, and vice versa? What do you make of the timing of this major trip?
Well, first of all, with regard to how China views these countries, obviously the Middle East is a very important region in the world, and most of the countries that Mr. Wang is going to are Sunni majority countries. Though Iran is not. We also have to recognize that prior to the trip, there was also calls made to the Jordanians and the Iraqis. So this is a comprehensive outreach to the Arab world. Now, the countries that the foreign minister is going to, they are all oil exporters. Most of them are oil exporters to China. All of them participate in Belt and Road. Of late, most, if not all of them, I think most of them are having access to Chinese vaccines. So that's a new area and a new area of development, but also where issues do need to be sorted out there, given that the Chinese vaccines have had some issues, and therefore there might be need for a little more clarification on that front. And most importantly, at the two sessions, it was talked about opening a new chapter in China-Arab relations with the Arab world. China is trying to have a free trade agreement with the Gulf Cooperation Council. So again, this economic element plays in with many of these countries, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. These are all important countries from China's point of view.
And that being said, you mentioned the Belt and Road. There's, if you think about it, a very long history here. The old trade routes and the old Silk Road today. It's the Belt and Road. So other than the economic part of it, how would you describe trade today? And is there also a political aspect as well?
Yes, there's a political aspect, and the Belt and Road element is a really good way to enter this discussion, because we have to remember that part of the Arab world was so dynamic, and they were essentially the link that bound Asia with the Arab world. There were Arab traders who used to live in southern China, and they were very dynamic, very entrepreneurial, and they were the ones who helped tie the two countries together. And once again, we are having this new age of cooperation, which is not linked just to resources, but linked to trade, economic growth, and entrepreneurialism. And I think that makes for a fascinating news story in a relationship which is millennia old.
You mentioned this briefly a moment ago, but vaccine cooperation when it comes to the coronavirus, also a big topic during this trip among the different countries. What more do you expect to hear as we go on?
There have been issues with regard to some of the transparency element in terms of data sharing, and there also has been a little discussion, controversies with regard to the efficacy of the vaccines. Now, the Chinese vaccine producers have sought emergency use authorization from the WHO, which means that they will be completely transparent with the data. So in this regard, it is useful to have more transparency than less transparency, and allay whatever concerns that there might be in the case, say in the UAE, where there were trials early and where there's already the vaccine has been rolled out. Turkey, again, is going to be a huge purchaser of the vaccines. And in that context of the conversation, there might also be discussions on how to manage the Uyghur issues, and particularly not have external intervention, external influence in those issues, because those are domestic issues. But Turkey also has slightly differing views out here. So it makes for a useful discussion to talk these areas out where there is not necessarily a harmonious convergence of views, but where both sides are better off by talking and having a more productive exchange.
All right, something to look forward to. Sourabh Gupta, thank you as always. We appreciate it.